It's the 9th of December, and we have another window in our TooFatLardies festive advent calendar for 2021. I hope you've been enjoying the windows for the calendar so far, and today we have Richard talking about the inspiration behind the use of command dice. So here we go, Richard. Let's take it away.
The origins of the chain of command dice mechanism, and actually chain of command more to the point, came about when Thomas, a good friend and one of the fellow Lardy in Sweden, asked if we would consider doing a World War II version of Through the Mud and the Blood. We had a bit of a dabble using the same card-driven activation system with the leaders being drawn in whatever sequence they came out to determine the run of play. But I was left feeling that it wasn't quite right. The training manuals from the Second World War left me wanting something a little bit more joined up. In my mind, I saw the platoon commander doing what he could to get his men to operate in a coordinated manner. That struck me as being absolutely the key function of the junior officer commanding a platoon. Sometimes they'd succeed, sometimes they'd fail, but they were always trying, and that's the thing that came through from the manuals. You know, you aren't going to get this right 100% of the time, but this is what you should be aspiring to. So I wanted to create the backdrop of a dynamic and challenging and changing battlefield where how much influence the player was able to exert would vary and shift from turn to turn or phase to phase, as it actually became. Sometimes being absolutely perfect, so they could get everything to do what they wanted in a coordinated manner, and sometimes being imperfect, but where they were still able to link together coherent phases of play. Now, I decided to use the command dice mechanism as it created a number of game mechanisms within one hand of dice. Firstly, you've got the roles of 1, 2, 3 and 4, which represent the platoon commander and their ability to influence the battlefield at any moment in time. And that moment in time being when you roll a hand of command dice. And for those who've not played, a roll of 1 activates a team, a roll of 2 activates a section or a squad, a roll of 3 activates the NCO commanding the section or the squad, and a roll of 4 activates a senior leader, such as the platoon lieutenant or senior sergeant. Now, this appears to be a pretty random spread of results, but actually there's an intentional balance in these. Because you're able to add these numbers together, these dice results together, it makes it more likely that you're going to be able to activate the senior leaders or the junior leaders, the section leaders, because you can combine the dice in order to do that. This, I think, is important because it shows the importance of a need of coherent leadership from the top to get things to happen. And equally, if you're wanting to activate smaller teams or those attached to the platoon from another unit, you need the unique roll of 1 because you literally can't add a number of dice together to make a 1. So it means that those smaller units, therefore less inclined to operate independently, less enthusiastic, if you like, because they're attached from other units. If you want to keep them active and you want to keep them on plan, you're likely that you're going to have to attach a senior leader to that Vickers or that tripod-mounted MG42 in order to make sure they're playing their role. Now, the very structure of the dice mechanism means that you've always got decisions to make. Now, whereas in many games where cards are dealt, so let's think of Through the Mud and the Blood, where a card is dealt, or maybe chips or dice even are pulled from a bag, you get to activate that one unit, and you've no idea what units will activate next. The thing about the command dice mechanism, which is different, is that it allows you to string together a series of activations so that the units within the platoon can act in concert and can do so simultaneously or sequentially, depending on your choice. So you could put down fire with the Vickers, you could then give covering fire with one section and then simultaneously manoeuvre with another. Now, it's not always going to be perfect, but it's enough to allow coherent command choices to be made with every hand of command dice roll. What's more, in a game which is never ever just about firepower, if you're just standing there shooting at your opponent and they're shooting back at you, you are subjecting yourself to the vagaries of the dice rolls. It's not what you should be doing. The game is about fire and movement tactics. That's how you're going to win the game. And the use of the command dice in that manner, allowing you to fire with some units, manoeuvre with others, is what is secret to winning the game and what the game's about. Okay, but of course it's not just about activating units. So a command dice roll of 5 increases the number of chain of command points and ultimately chain of command dice that you build up. And that's really representing the platoon commander getting to grips with the tactical situation on the battlefield. And it allows them to be able to influence the run of play by doing something exceptional. Launch that ambush. Or gain ground by shifting forward that jump-off points. These are all events that we read about in so many battle accounts, but they are the exception rather than the rule, to the extent that we don't want them to be unlimited in their availability. We don't want people launching ambushes, in every phase of play. It would make the game into a bit of a farce. So that we've got a mechanism here that when they do happen, it's a major in-game event. And if you as the commander are spending your command dice on doing that, means you're not spending it on doing something else which could be equally important. So again, there are choices to be made. The chain of command dice mechanisms allow these to occur, but not completely overwhelm the game. Now, last one, we've got the sixes. Now, sixes, again, I'm looking to get best value for money here. Sixes do a lot of things. They determine the run of play. With the potential for more than one phase to occur in a row. It's a key mechanism and it serves multiple purposes, right? So, firstly, it presents players with some rather seductive opportunities to take a risk, which I always think is rather fun. Sometimes these come off, rather often they don't. The system of variable movement means that what should be simple suddenly becomes difficult. I rather like that. Note, C. Clausewitz, he said exactly the same thing about war. Simple things become very, very difficult. It provides an opportunity to break a deadlock, with one side being able to tip the decision in their favour, which I think is good from a game design perspective, even if I think a deadlock is somewhere that you shouldn't be in the first place. So remember, said it already, fire and movement, never just fire. But it does mean that if you are in a deadlock situation, it can change that. It's still a lottery as to who that happens to, but that's part of the game. It's trying to drive you to manoeuvre rather than just rely on firepower alone. Now, probably more important than that is that it ensures that there's uncertainty on the battlefield. And this is something that seems to be missed out when you read a lot of accounts. A predictable turn sequence rarely requires a plan B. What do you do if the wheels come off your original plan? And knowing that your opponent may well have 2 or more phases on the bounce should encourage players to consider the overall game objectives. Yeah, make your original plan, but also what's their backstop position if things go wrong? If things do go wrong, where am I going to draw the line? What can I do to stop, not just to win, but to stop my opponent winning? Now, let's not pull any wool over any eyes. I am constantly under pressure on forums, Facebook and wherever, from people who want me to water down the command dice so that multiple phases are less effective. I'm told that chain of command can't be used for tournaments because the system is inherently unfair. Well, I'm not sorry about that. Apparently, if your opponent gets 3 or 4 phases on the trot, it ruins the game. Well, okay, that's one way of looking at it. However, if we look at historical accounts of warfare, it's very easy to find many, and I really do mean many accounts, where a commander feels totally in control and then the wheels come off completely. The commander on the ground there has got a choice. They can pipe their eye and complain about how unfair it is, or they can take it on the chin and respond by trying to reassess the situation, reevaluate what they can hope to achieve, and change their plan to cope with a new reality. Now, I mentioned a few moments ago the importance of having that plan B. What happens if it goes wrong? And yes, it's brutal when a game kicks you fairly and squarely where it hurts, but that doesn't make it any less of a reflection of the realities of command in war. Now, I'm quite relaxed about people inventing their own house rules to tone things down if that's what they want. But I've looked at this and I've played through and I've changed it and reduced the number of dice by one or whatever. And to be honest with you, I'm very happy with the mechanism is as it is, because that gives me the game that I feel is truest to the realities of the Command experience, and that in itself also, and this is more important, allows endless replayability of almost any scenario, as no game will be the same. Throughout it all, those command choices are going to be there for the players to make. Whether they make the right choices is going to be a decision that only they can make in the unique situation of the game that they are playing.